Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge, the only podcast that believes that Bastos is a striker. I'm Vittorio Campanile, and with me we have Alistair McKenzie, who is the prophet of Marcos van Basten. Alistair, can we start saying that with Bastos, Lazio yesterday would have won?
I think there's not a shadow of a doubt left in my mind. I mean, it's really a crying shame that not only did we lose, but Van Bastos wasn't given the opportunity to do what we all hoped and knew he could do. I mean, the thing is now we've got Joaquin Correa limping out of that game with a problem. So you never know. Maybe sometime in the future, but it did add insult to injury a little bit that we didn't get to see the man in action.
Yeah, we are starting an hashtag Inzaghi out after this. This is a terrible mistake. We should sack our manager. It's unbelievable he didn't understand this. But jokes apart, Alistair, we knew it would be a very, very difficult match without Caicedo and Ciro Immobile, with Correa not 100% fit, with Adekanye and Moro. Well, we thought out Adekanye played yesterday. It was a difficult match. We know that Milan was having Ibrahimovic back, so it was hard. We knew it. Can we say Lazio didn't play the best, but was even a little bit unlucky? I mean, the first Milan goal was a deflection. The penalty, Strakosha saved it and went in anyway. So a bit of unlucky for Lazio as well.
Yeah, no, I think so, absolutely. I mean, the result is pretty bad to look at, and it's the worst we've had since Inter whenever it was November 2018, I think it was. And it ends the run of unbeaten home games going back to last season. So there's a lot of kind of nasty statistics out there to kind of make this result seem pretty harrowing. But in terms of performance, like you say, I don't think any of us went into this with any particularly high expectations given the problems in this squad. Because even beyond the guys that we were missing through suspension or injury, it also meant that we had guys playing who weren't really ready to be playing 90 minutes, like Lazzari, like Alberto, like Acerbi, who are playing every single game now and are just tired. And yeah, I think when that's happening and you're up against it like that, you do need the rub of the green a little bit. Like you say, the deflected shot, these things happen. So it's not to say that, Milan didn't deserve it because it was a deflection, because these goals happen all the time. Strakosha must be never wanting to watch that again because he was very unlucky not to save it. And yeah, I saw this morning that actually, in terms of shots on goal and chances created, the two teams were level at the end of the game, which is, I guess, more of a reflection on the performance as it was. I think for me, the crucial moment was Lazzari's disallowed goal, because Alberto had to release that pass a bit earlier, and it was very frustrating because I think if Lazio had scored at that moment, which they kind of should have done really from that position, then the game could have taken on a different complexion. And I think by the time the third goal went in and all the subs were coming off, it was pretty inevitable that it was over.
I think that the quality made the biggest difference. Parolo, for me, showed that he's a valuable player, but he's not able to compete anymore at this level. He made too many mistakes. And as you were saying, Luis Alberto, that usually has the perfect tempo, making that pass a couple of seconds too late. This is something we are not used to see. As you were saying, fatigue. Luis Alberto, Milinkovic-Savic played all the matches. And we read the press conference of Inzaghi. He said that Milinkovic at the end of the first half was tired. He has to come off. Now it looks like he has a little injury with his ankle. Luis Alberto was pretty gone in the second half. He didn't do nothing special. The biggest issue is the bench. It's true that compared to Juventus, Inter, Milan, etc., Lazio had far more injured players. Let's not forget that we went to this match with Leiva without 90 minutes, Cataldi without 90 minutes, Marusic, Luis Felipe, Lulic, and other players out who wasn't called. Immobile and Caicedo were banned. So, I think we showed that Lazio's bench is good enough to play against Torino, but when you need to step up and compete with bigger team, this is where Lazio struggle. We said Bernardeschi is not a champion, but Juventus has Bernardeschi to pick up, and it's enough to play against big team. If you have to pick Adekanye at the moment, he's not ready to play against Milan.
Yeah, and I think it tells you a lot about where we are at the moment, that it was a real boost to see Adekanye in the squad and able to play, because it seemed like, oh yes, we've got a real option now to play up there. And then actually, if you take a step back and think about that for a second, this is a guy who's only had a handful of substitute appearances all season. He's really not the kind of guy that you want to be playing against AC Milan in an important league match. I mean, we got quite a few comments last night after the game, as expected. One of them from Oki Ganesha Putra. He said the squad depth, Johnny and Vavro equals Dermisi and Wallace and Berisha. Which is probably reflective of what a lot of people are feeling at the moment. But, I mean, the squad depth is the one thing that people keep going back to. But another comment we had... Mohamed Wajid said, even without injuries and suspensions, this game would have been tough considering the squad is built for one game a week. Playing 2 a week with unfit players, quite frankly, would have been a miracle to get a result. He also points out, like what we've just said about there was an element of bad luck as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that, would you say as well that the fact that Lazio struggled in the Europa League this season, when they played that Europa League, that rotated team for those games, already showed us that the squad depth was an issue. So really, this is the worst possible thing that could have happened to Lazio, is to be put in this position where they're playing, 3 games in 6 days and then another one soon after.
Yes, we have to say something, Alistair, that we didn't mention. We said it before the restart, right? We said the first 4 matches of the restart of the new season are the toughest for Lazio. You play against Atalanta, Milan, Fiorentina, Torino. Torino is probably the weakest team we had to play, but it's fighting for relegation. The other 3 are very good teams. So the schedule, the fixture for Lazio was quite complicated. Play this 4 match in 14 days. It's very difficult. So the fixture for Lazio will be better in the coming weeks. So this is something we have to remember. Said this is the weaknesses of the team. Yes, we had a lot of injured players, and this is another thing we should be talking about. Why in 110 days Lazio had so many injured players without playing, while Inter didn't have, Roma didn't have, and so on? What's going on? And the other one is, yes. I mean, Lukaku, we can say it's a big surprise. We thought the season was over for him. And when he played quite well. Johnny, we said we weren't convinced about Johnny playing. And I have to say that against Torino, he didn't play bad. I would have said that yesterday Johnny played better than Lazzari. He's not fit to play 90 minutes because before he hardly played a full match. Now he played 4 matches in 14 days. Obviously, he's knackered. But yes, we said it since September, right? The depth of this team is not good enough. We need a left back. We need a Vice Immobile. We need another central midfielder. We probably need another defender. We hope that this match proved to Tare and Lotito that these teams needs a lot of players. It's not the numbers, Alistair. It's quality player.
Yeah, and that goes back to, I mean, something I wrote straight after the Atalanta game actually was about the fact that this isn't really testing so much the squad depth as we know it with Lazio, which is basically the bench players. This is testing the level below that, because that's the test of a really strong squad, isn't just the players who you can bring off the bench, but the players who you have waiting in reserve, I suppose. And the fact that Lazio have had to deal with so many injury problems already means that it's not been your Cataldis, your Caicedos, your Patrick, your Bastos, the guys you kind of see a lot of during the Serie A season. It's not been those guys that we've been having to look at and having to cast opinions about. It's been your Adekanyes or your Giovan Anderson or Dennis Vavro. People we've barely seen all season now are going to be expected to play a hell of a lot of games. And that is really the crucial point of what we're talking about here that makes the difference. But something that people picked up on as well is that here's one question. It was from Samer Kazim. Said the amount of injuries after the restart is unacceptable to our squad and something better should have been done before the restart. Key players like Lucas, Luis Felipe, Correa are injured and struggling in terms of fitness. That's not normal. We had another comment, I can't find it now, but yeah, there was another one about the fact that basically asking if we should be critical of the fact that the players aren't looking as fit as they should be and that there are so many injury problems. I mean, do you think that's just bad luck, or is there an issue with the conditioning here? Could more have been done to avoid all this?
Well, obviously, we don't know because we weren't there, but it's strange to see Juventus having pretty much all the players available, Inter having all the players fit, and Lazio have to deal with 10 injuries. There's something wrong that happened. It's obviously bad luck. I don't know, but I would say that 95% of this injury are muscle injury. So it's not a bad tackle or things like that. It's something that happened in the training. So I feel that there's something that Lazio did wrong in the preparation for this mini league, because it's not acceptable that Luis Felipe got injured in the friendly match against Ternana. Leiva never recovered from the surgery. Marudic is always injured, and so on. I mean, the list is far too big. There has to be something wrong. And again, this is badly impacted the performance. Let's not forget something, Alistair. Javan Anderson have been playing in all these last 3 matches. In January, Javan Anderson was playing with the Primavera because couldn't find space in the first squad. Now, I'm happy because he's proving that he has something to give to the squad. But this was a player that Inzaghi said, "You're not having space here. Let's go and play with the Primavera." This is something we have to think about.
No, exactly. I mean, that's what I was meaning before. It's that layer of players in the squad who basically just haven't even been close to being selected, just because they're basically not good enough. I mean, whether they're going to be good enough in the future, we'll soon find out. But for this season, they've been regarded as not being at a level necessary to play. But now there's no options left but to. I mean, one of the success stories you could maybe say of what's happened so far has been Jordan Lukaku coming back and actually showing that he has something to offer, at least off the bench. And I was looking at some of the player ratings today from some of the papers here, and he seems to be the one who's been given the most generous ratings by the Italian papers as well. And what do you think about him? I mean, is this a kind of period that could rescue his Lazio career? I mean, he's a player that I thought was done, would be out of the door in the summer, but if he keeps going along this way, he may find a way back into the squad.
I mean, how often did we say this? The Lazio experience for Lukaku is done. We thought it, right? He didn't show up, and this is a strange miracle, Alistair, because before his debut in this return of fixture, I think he trained just 3 days with the first squad. So this is like, coming from nowhere. No one expected, because he really trained a couple of days with the first squad, and suddenly he's playing, and he's playing well. I mean, against Fiorentina, he was tired after 10 minutes. But as we said, playing every 3 days, the match is a sort of training, and you can see that he's improving day after day. So I thought he played great against Torino. I thought that against Milan, he has everything to do that job perfectly. He's fast. He's physical. He crossed well the ball in the box. I mean, Lazzari, we saw it yesterday. I think he put just one good ball in the box, while Lukaku did it every time he gets there. So I hope Lukaku is back, because I think if he solve all his injury problems with, I'm not sure about that, he can be a starter next year and fix one of the problems Lazio have. So yes, crossing finger. I still think we have to buy someone there, because Lukaku's playing now, and maybe he's get injured in 1 week time and he's done. So we are not sure. But yes, he's probably the biggest surprise of this start for Lazio.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing he's not, it's reliable. So yeah. One of the other questions we had on Twitter from Erfan Gaharian said, do you see any solution to recovering the team for the rest of the season? We're going to need to keep playing every 3 or 4 days. And I suppose beyond, using the likes of Lukaku and some of the more effective bench players, I think that the only hope really for Lazio is that we've already seen that some players who have been injured are starting to come back into the team. It was a massive thing, I think, to have Lukic back in the starting lineup yesterday. I think that's going to make a hell of a lot of difference to this team going forward. Obviously, he wasn't fit to play the whole game, but he is coming back. Cataldi's coming back. Adekanye is coming back. Luis Felipe is going to be coming back in the next week or so, we hope. So yeah, I think that the only hope for Lazio to be able to actually kind of get back to anywhere like where they were before, for me, is that the players who are missing start getting back on the pitch and that they avoid picking up any further injuries, because I just don't think they can keep doing this juggling act that they've been doing and expect to get results. The problem is obviously Correa, we already know, has picked up a problem. Milinkovic-Savic asked to be taken off last night. So we have to wait and find out how serious those problems are. But I think for me, Vittorio, that's going to be the essential thing, is for Lazio to stand any chance of getting back that momentum. They're going to have to bring these players back from injury and find a way to stop any more being picked up.
One important thing, Alistair, is finally Lazio is going to play a couple of weak teams.
Yeah.
And one of the most important thing for me against Lecce is closing the match in the first 45 minutes. You know, we got the example of Inter against Brescia. They scored immediately, the match was over, and they could relax, right? This is something Lazio have to try to do, because against Fiorentina, Lazio went immediately down, had to fight for 90 minutes to win. Against Torino, immediately down a penalty, Lazio have to fight for 90 minutes. If against Lecce, we can finally, close the first half 3-0, and then Inzaghi can do 5 substitutions immediately, make all the players rest, and pretty much jog all the second half. This will help the team recover, maybe help someone who didn't play that much play 45 minutes without having to force. And, this would be very important, because if you don't have to fight for 90 minutes, but for 45, 60, etc., then you can a little bit relax and come back to your form and don't be too tired for the next match. This is going to be really important, and this should be the goal for the next couple of matches. So starting from Lecce, we know Lecce is playing terribly. I saw them against Sassuolo, against Inter. Liverani said a lot of my players are not fit. I don't know what they did in this period when there wasn't football. So this should be really a match where Lazio should try to finish it immediately and then relax. Is Inzaghi going to do a lot of turnover? Probably, because I think Correa, Milinkovic-Savic won't be able to play, but we're getting back Immobile and Caicedo. So I really think that the goal is to finish the match early and relax in the second half. This could be, the goal of these coming matches.
Yeah, I think that's something that's been overlooked a little bit, is how hard Lazio's return has been, not just in terms of the selection issues they've had with all these injuries and suspensions, but also the opponents they've had. I mean, having to come up against Atalanta away as your first game back is a complete disaster. I mean, that's as bad as it gets at the moment. Then Fiorentina, Torino, not easy teams, and then Milan. So now, this is the period at which Lazio really need to find a way back into form, because even in the wins over Fiorentina and Torino, I don't think we saw anything like Lazio at their best. This kind of brings me on to one of the final points. I'll get some more of these questions again. Bruno said, did anyone see this coming? I thought it would have come down to the Juve match, but it could all be done before then. Erfan Gaharian again said, I'm not annoyed about lagging behind in the championship race. What I'm more worried about is the rest of the season is losing second and potentially third position. To be honest, seeing the performances of Atalanta and our injuries, I see ourselves ending up in fourth position. And then finally, Frats13 said, for our budget, second place is an accomplishment and everyone should be happy that we're in the Champions League. So basically, all of these points go to one essential argument, which is this result from last night damaging enough that it means that Lazio's hopes of competing at the top of the table are completely over? Or is there still a chance of bringing things back again? I mean, what do you think?
Well, the chance is still there. It's not mathematically over. I thought the defeat against Atalanta was the turning point. It's true that now Juventus have some tough matches, so it's probably going to be the next coming matches to decide everything. Honestly, when coronavirus happened and the season stopped, I thought that was the end for Lazio chances, because playing every 3 days, it was very complicated for Lazio. But on the other side, we have to say that Juventus is not playing great football. Juventus have been lucky to play against weak teams and manage to win. So there's a risk Lazio won't finish second, yes, but even Inter is not playing great football. So we're going to see in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I've just had an article published this morning where I basically said that I think it'll be the next week will decide this, because, yeah, looking at Juve's games so far, look, they played Bologna when Bologna hadn't even had a game back yet, and they'd had 3, I think. Then they had Lecce, Genoa, and Torino. I mean, these are, I would have loved for Lazio to have had that selection of games when they came back. And yeah, not everyone's been totally convinced, obviously, with the way that they're playing, even if they are winning games quite comfortably. My argument essentially is that Juve haven't been tested properly yet. And when they were tested after coming back was in the Coppa Italia games, because that was the first time they had to come across teams with real firepower in AC Milan in the semi-final, Napoli in the final. Both of those games finished 0-0. So basically, they've got Milan away on Tuesday night, then they've got Atalanta at home on Saturday, I think. In that same period, Lazio are playing Lecce and Sassuolo. Within a week, essentially, I think I'll know where we are, because if Juventus win both of those games, I think it is over, to be honest, because I don't think either Lazio or Inter can get close enough to them before that head-to-head between Lazio and Juve on the 20th. But if they do drop points, even if they drop 2 points in that period and Lazio manage to pick up the wins that they need, I think, honestly, even if the gap is only 5 points going into that game in Turin, that is enough to say that that's still the decisive moment. Because if Lazio can win in Turin and reduce the gap to 2 points with a few games still to go, it's on. So I disagree that it's completely over due to what happened last night, because Lazio have had a hard time coming back into this. They've still not shown many signs that they're going to be able to get back to where they were. But the one thing we've learned this season is really never underestimate this team, because every time they've been questioned, they've had an answer to it generally. And Juventus are about to have far harder questions asked of them than they have done so far. So, yeah, I'm not saying the Lazio are going to rush back into a Scudetto winning position, but I do just think it's a bit early with 8 games left, which is over 20% of the season still to go. I think it's too early to say that it's absolutely done and dusted by now.
Yes, and let's not forget that our goal is reaching the Champions League, which is getting closer every day, because, you know, the gap now between Lazio and the 5th is big. And at this moment, it's really hard to think that Lazio won't finish in the top 4. Yes, it would be a little bit disappointing if Lazio finished 4th, for example, but would be still achieving our goal. And let's not forget that at the moment, of the top 4 clubs, Lazio is the only one who's picking injuries. I do believe that playing every 3 days, Atalanta will have some problems, Inter will have some problems. I don't believe that Lazio will be the only team who's going to struggle with injury, with fatigue, etc. And as I said, Inter and Juventus have more depth, but I don't believe Atalanta has that bigger option than Lazio. So, you know, let's wait and see what happens to the other teams. And yeah, let's not forget that our goal this season was the 4th place. We're still 2nd. So, you know, Yeah, a little bit disappointed because Lazio lost at home for the first time this season. But let's not forget, we won a trophy. We are fighting against Juventus, and we're still second.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a bit of perspective is always going to be needed with this season. I think by the end of it, to be honest, if we have fallen down to fourth place, for example, I think a lot of fans won't be able to help but feel disappointed given where we were. But then, honestly, having a look at the season expectations going into it and thinking about it that way, there is no doubt that returning to the Champions League in itself is an absolutely massive achievement for a squad that, as we've just been explaining, isn't built for anything other than playing league football. So for them to get through this period right now with so many games coming so fast, and the heat, by the way, oh my God, is nasty as well. And that's another thing for people to contend with, then yeah, I think that would still be a great achievement. I am a bit worried about this Sassuolo game, by the way, because it's supposed to be a 5:15 kickoff. They're talking about turning it to 4:45 now, and I can confirm that is not a time at the moment that anyone should be playing football.
Yeah, let's go back to this before I talk about another thing. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but Lega Calcio had a meeting yesterday or 2 days ago about anticipating of 30 minutes the kickoff of the matches, which, guys, if you have never been to Italy in July, you cannot understand. It's so hot. What was it? Atalanta's last match. I don't remember against who it was. The first half was pretty much so hot that the players couldn't run, while the second half was much cooler and we saw improvement. So anticipating 30 minutes mean that it would be walking football, basically. So yeah, this would be a terrible decision, and I don't understand why they are doing it. So this completely don't make sense. I think they didn't have an agreement, so it's not going to happen. But we're going to see, in Italy, everything can change. The other thing important is the goal for Lazio is reaching the Champions League, because you will get much more money, and this will mean much more money for Tare to build the team next season. So this is why it's important for Lazio, because finally Lazio is going to be able to sign top players, to spend a lot of money in the transfer market, and to improve the team. That's why we are hoping for the Champions League for Lazio, not because we're going to play in Champions League, but especially because we're going to get Champions League money that is going to change a lot of things for Lazio.
Yeah, let's hope so, at least. I mean, I think that one of the great success stories of this post-lockdown break has been how bad Roma have been coming back from it. So that's been fairly spectacular. Their defeat to Udinese the other night was just awful. So thankfully, that means that there isn't any great pressure coming from the teams outside of the top four at the moment. So yeah, let's just let's see what happens. But yeah, let's I think make sure that as fans we don't get too wound up about the fact that we've lost a game. It does happen. This season has been an outlier. This isn't the norm for us as Lazio fans, and being in the Champions League race itself is a great success. So let's just keep cheering on the team and see what happens.
Yeah, last victory of Atalanta was the 12th of January, just to give an idea to our listener. So this tells you how bad Roma was playing against Udinese. Alex, I think we can wrap it up here. I don't know if you have a stats now that football is back.
There was one earlier that I found quite interesting. Let me just get it up again. The trusty old Lazio page resource. It was about Patrick, because actually there's another one as well, which is a bit grimmer, which is that Ciro Immobile, whenever he's not played, Lazio have lost 4 of the 5 games he's not played in this season, which isn't very nice. But yeah, Patrick, I think, is a player who deserves a bit of credit for the way that he's been playing, especially since the break. I think he's been one of the better performers. And this was the 3rd consecutive game that he's been the match leader for touches of the ball, passes made, and percentage of passes completed. So I think that tells you an awful lot, not only about how well he's performing, but also the importance he's playing in the construction of the moves for Lazio as a kind of, I suppose, yet another playmaker in that team. So well done, Patrick.
Well done, Patrick. Again, thank you very much, Alistair. And guys, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify. And if you want to support our podcast, you can do it on patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Subscription start at just $2 a month. So really, it's a massive help for us. Please, if you like the show, subscribe to our Patreon page. Alistair, thank you again. And we're going to talk again after Lecce Lazio. We hope to see another great performance of Lazio, much better than against Milan. Thank you again, Alistair, and thanks everybody for listening. Goodbye.
Cheers.